Governor.
Thank you very much for your kind introduction. I appreciate it. And I also want to just again compliment you for your great leadership during the fires. I tell you guys that working with this mayor was such a great pleasure because he was there 24 hours a day. Every single time we called down here, he was on the phone himself, not an aide or someone else. He was on the phone. He came and walked around with me to the Qualcomm Stadium and Del Mar and all the different places. It was really extraordinary, the kind of leadership that you showed and what a great team player you were and all of those things. So thank you very much. Give him a big hand for this great, great work. Yeah. So anyway, for me, it's great to be back here in the San Diego area. I always love coming down here. And, of course, I love traveling around up and down the state of California because it is such a beautiful place. And especially when you do the State of the State address like we have done on January 8th and then the budget presentation on January 10th, I always like to go and then go to the people and explain pretty much of what we are trying to do this coming year and what we want to do in the future for California. And I think that this time I want to do the same thing again because the people are my true partners. I always say that if we wouldn't have the people of California, we wouldn't have made the kind of moves that we have made. We wouldn't have been able to turn around the economy like we have done when I came into office in 2003. It was the people that helped me to turn the economy around, to help me to almost create 1 million new jobs. They helped me to reform workers' compensation. They helped me with passing the bond measures, the strategic growth plan, the $37 billion plus the $5 billion in water bonds and so on. So those are all things that I could never do by myself. I can make the proposals. I can go and bring people together. I can bring Democrats and Republicans together. But in the end, it's the people. It's the people power. That's what this is all about. And so you guys all have been really fantastic and have been great, great partners. And because of that, we have accomplished a lot. And I think California is much further ahead now than we were in 2003. But we still have a major problem, and this is our budget system. This year, we feel it especially because we have our economy not operating and not functioning the way it ought to, because of the housing market and because of the subprime mortgage crisis that we have. So we've seen a little decrease on what we anticipated in revenues. We anticipated an increase of around 5% in revenues this fiscal year and next, and that is not happening. We have a 1% increase. So that doesn't mean that we're going downhill. It doesn't mean that we're in a disastrous situation or anything like that. No, the economy is functioning really well, except, like I said, the housing market, and it has spillover effects. But because of that, it becomes very clear that our budget system is not functioning well. And it hasn't functioned well for decades. And this is why governors over and over, if they're Democratic governors or Republican governors, always had a problem. That one time they had to raise taxes, then they had to make severe cuts, and then they had to raise taxes, then they had to make severe cuts. And always, it makes no difference who it is. Everyone runs into this situation when we have a little bit of downturn economically. So this year we have, of course, the same situation again. We've anticipated higher revenues as we have. But now the interesting thing here is that even though our revenues are flat, our spending formulas are requiring us to spend more money. So the automatic formulas that are built in that I personally cannot stop, no one can stop. As a matter of fact, just to show to you, right now, we are spending $400 to $600 million a month. $400 to $600 million a month more than we are taking in, and we can do nothing about it. We are just watching this thing going down and running deeper, deeper into the red and creating a bigger and bigger deficit. So this is why it is very important that the legislators now, first of all, make mid-year cuts. And the second challenge is then to go and to look at the next fiscal year and to make the cuts necessary in order to really level it off, because we have our spending formulas demand that we increase our spending by 7.3%, even though our revenues are flat. So we have to change that system. And then the next thing we have to do, the third thing we have to do is really work on the system itself. And I brought some charts here with me so that you understand, because it's always easier to see than charts what we're talking about. This is the green line that you see here is our revenues. These are our revenues. And here's our spending. As you could see already in 2000, our spending is going totally out of control, totally pay no regard to the spending, to the revenues, but it just shoots up and is way above by around billions of dollars. We're talking about $8 billion right here. Then I came into office. We try to now bring the two together, the revenues and the spending. But here it goes totally out of control again. The economy is leveling off, and you're seeing flattening out the revenues, but the spending formulas are driving this up, and this is an equivalent of around $10 billion. Now, if we would have had budget reform 10 years ago, the two lines would have met and would have been much more together. Now, the interesting thing that you need to see here is the revenues and spending continue going up, not down, up. So when we talk about cuts, it's really when we talk about what we are supposed to spend according to the formulas rather than what really should be spent. What should be spent is a gradual increase in spending we should have so that the schools and vulnerable citizens don't experience this kind of a roller coaster ride, what I call. So we believe very strongly in continuous increasing in funding in education or in healthcare or in prisons, in law enforcement orders. But we can't, because when we go and have increases in revenues, steep increases in revenues, we spend it all, and then a year later when we have decreases in revenues, then all of a sudden we don't have the money to continue spending what we did the last year or what we should be spending. So therefore we take our children on this roller coaster ride. And every time we do the budget, it's a roller coaster ride where people have to hold on for dear life. And there's no reason for that. It's just because the legislators in Sacramento really has not yet gotten their act together and said, let's fix this system. Now, the good news here is that the legislators this time see this as a serious problem and they see an opportunity. That because there's a crisis, they see it as an opportunity that they want to fix it. Democrats and Republicans, I had yesterday a wonderful Big Five meeting where the legislative leaders and the governor get together, and they all agreed that they should work on this immediately. They shouldn't wait for it. They shouldn't procrastinate or anything. They should work on this to have this year's cuts right away done, and then to go and take on the challenge of next year's cuts, which I proposed approximately of $10 billion or 10% cuts across the board. And, so they're going to take those challenges. They're going to take on those challenges and also to reform the budget system once and for all. The good thing here is this, that since we have come into office, we have tightened the noose. Now, why was that important? Because previous administrations, and I say plural, previous administrations have taken money from anywhere they could when they ran out of money. When they had a budget problem, they grabbed money from local government. And as you all know, what we did, we passed Proposition 1A to protect local government because it was not fair to start ripping you off, local government, and take money away from you. So 1A, which passed by 82% votes, which was fantastic. So we took that option off the table. Proposition 42. What did government do? What did the state of California do? Immediately when they ran out of money, grabbed transportation money, which was not fair. So now we took that off the table through Proposition 42. And then the other thing they, of course, did was they borrowed for ongoing programs. Now with Proposition 58, we took that off the table. So now you cannot borrow for ongoing programs. So and you can't take any more pension funds. What government used to do is just basically grab anywhere they could some money so they could continue satisfying their spending appetite. It was an addiction. They just couldn't stop spending. Now they have to. Now we have to settle into reality because there's no more taking money from anywhere else. Now we have to live within our means, which means that this year we projected $101 billion in revenues, but only there's a reduction and we only will have $96 billion. So that means we only should spend $96 billion. We cannot spend 101. We should only spend $96 billion. That's the thing. That's being fiscally responsible. That's the least thing you can ask for. It's not like a miracle or anything like this. I mean, this is what we're asking you to do. This is what we're asking businesses to do. This is what we should require government to do. Live within your means. Don't promise people something that you don't have. And that's the problem a lot of politicians make. The mistake that they make all the time is they go out and they promise people things, then they can't keep it. You know, this is the problem. And of course, mayors face the same problem. Everyone faces the same problem. That we make deals and we promise things that we can't then keep. So we want to be fiscally responsible. Here's a chart. Just want to show you. If we don't do budget reform, this is what will happen. The revenues, as you can see, are flat. Then they will increase slightly. But the spending is way out of control. This is an equivalent, this difference of $10 billion a year. Now think about how much deficit we bring up if we continue this way. So the only way to go is, bless you, the only way to go is to bring those lines together, as you can see here, through budget reform. Now what do we talk about budget reform? It basically means that we want to go and when we see an increase in revenues and the economy is booming, that we don't use all of that money, that we don't spend it, that we simply take part of that increase away for the rainy day fund. So we put some money aside for the bad times. And now when the economy goes down and revenues go down, now you can supplement that with this decrease in revenues. You can supplement it and now you don't have to go and take everyone on this roller coaster ride because you smoothen it out as it shows here. The lines are smoothened out. We don't have those peaks and valleys. We have more rolling hills and going up and up and up. That's what we need to do. And number two, what we need to do is the Arkansas model, which many other states have, which is basically where the legislature determines ahead of time what are the programs that will be cut if our economy goes down and if revenues go down. So we don't sit there like right now they're going to sit down and they're going to debate over this issue. I guarantee you during the time that they debate this issue, there will not be much else taken care of because the capital doesn't operate that way. When we have our budget discussions in the summer, during that time there is nothing else that gets done except the budget. And sometimes they spend 2-3 months on that budget. So that means 2 or 3 months nothing else gets done. It's a waste of time. In the meantime, last summer, when they had all those debates and fights over the budget, we could have worked on education reform. We could have worked on healthcare reform. We could have worked on infrastructure, on so many other important issues. But the whole capital gets frozen. So it's better to make that decision ahead of time and say, what do we cut? Here are the 3 things we cut first. And after that, there's another layer of 3 different things that we can cut. Let's decide that ahead of time. So that's basically the 2 things, and that would take care of the budget problem, the systemic problem that we have right now. So I think that we are in the right direction here with this. Like I said, I have great hopes, and I believe that the legislature, by working together as well as they've done in the past, now in this past 2 years, I think we have a good shot of getting this done once and for all. And with that now, I want to open it up to you if you have any questions about anything that I have said. And Mike Ginest, I want to just introduce him also. Mike, do you want to get up? This is our finance director who has done a great job on working with all those big challenges. So if there's any questions that you have specifically that maybe only he can answer, the magician, then of course he will be more than happy to answer that. And then we have also, where's Scott here from education? See, no, not Himmelstein. No, but he can also answer questions. Exactly, that's right. But anyways, if you have any questions, please feel free. Do we have firefighters here? Are you guys firefighters? Okay, give them a big hand because these are the greatest. Yeah. Man, you guys were unbelievable. Unbelievable. The best firefighters and the most experienced firefighters and the most courageous firefighters. I mean, these guys were unbelievable. Some of them that came back when I was cruising around, some of them came back from fighting the fires. I just want to tell you that. 3 days later, with no sleep and a sandwich in a pocket. That's how they went up in the mountains. I mean, it is really extraordinary of what the kind of stories that I have witnessed in this last fire. So thank you very much for being here today. Thank you. So any questions? Yes, please.
So if it's going to be a 10% across the board, if 10% is not enough, what are you going to do next?
Now, 10% we have figured out that is enough. And the only thing is that for some people, they think it's easy to make a 10% cut. But let me tell you something, it's tough. It's tough because I see the people that come to my office. We have to tell everyone. When we saw the situation, we have brought education leaders in, from higher education, from kindergarten through 12th, after-school program leaders, people that deal with AIDS patients, healthcare experts and community leaders and all this, and to look them in the face and to talk about fiscal responsibility. As I said in my State of the State, it sounds kind of cold. But what can we do? The system has driven us to that stage that we have to make those cuts because we can't grab the money anywhere else. So it is sad in a way, but we have to do it. And I hope that this is a wake-up call for people, for the legislators specifically in Sacramento, that we shouldn't take people through this kind of ups and downs. It is not fair because when the revenues go up, everyone is so excited. Everyone says, isn't it great? Look at the economy is doing well. Let's spend money on this program. Let's fund that program. And all these great ideas. Then all of a sudden it goes down and they all sit there. What happened? Well, I said, what happened is what happens many, many times in history. It's nothing new. Nothing that we see here on those charts is new. In the history, when you look back, economies go up and the economies come down, and they go up and they come down. There's recessions, there's good times, there's bad times, all of those things. You got to go and say, how do we protect ourselves from those ups and downs? To make that line straight but always go up. And that's what we have to do. Yes?
Transportation funding over a few years had been rated by the state government. Now we have Prop 1A in place and 42 is protected. Can you assure us that transportation infrastructure funding will continue on getting their funding in the future?
Well, I'm not only going to promise you that we're going to continue with our infrastructure, but I can tell you that it was wonderful yesterday when we had our Big Five meeting to have Democrats and Republicans sitting there in my office and all talking about stimulating the economy and actually pumping faster the money into our infrastructure than anticipated. Because we thought this would be money, the $37 billion that the people have approved over the next 10 years. We said, let's speed it up. There's so many people because of the housing market being down. Let's go and put all of these people to work. Now, we are increasing new jobs all the time, so job growth is still up. But the fact of the matter is there's more people now that need jobs because of the money problem. So this is why it is very important that we put those people to work. So we are going to speed up the process. We're going to pump more money and build more transportation quicker and more classrooms and expand our universities and all the things, and fix our levees, all of the things that we did, because infrastructure is extremely important. And there's some people, I want to remind you, there's some people that are scared. And they're scared because we have a budget problem, which I call a temporary problem. But they're scared about going and tackle permanent kind of solutions. So they say, maybe we should stop with the infrastructure. Maybe they shouldn't do healthcare reform. Maybe we shouldn't go after creating more water storage and all of those kind of things. Big mistake. This is why in my State of the State I used the example of Roosevelt. When there was the Depression, he didn't just wait there and say, oh my God, the economy is going down. We have a depression. Let's not do anything. No, he did the opposite. He went and invested in the future of America, and that's what we have to do. We got to continue investing in the future of California, because if we don't have faith in California, who would? We have to inspire the rest of the world and say, we believe in our future. Let's invest in our future. So this is why I think it's very important. And I just want to also say that we are right now working on, as you know, since last year, on water. The future, California is very vulnerable when it comes to the reliability of water. I mean, we have water now, but as you know, that since we had 1 year drought, we already have water rationing in some places, and the fees are going up by 10% in some other places. That's how vulnerable we are. Now, there's no way right now that we can guarantee you that there will be water available in 20 or 30 years from now. We have no guarantee. But I want to make sure that there is a guarantee. And this is why we want to build. And that's why we have negotiated, Democrats and Republicans. And we are very close to get this deal where we build more above the ground and below the ground water storage, where we fix the delta once and for all. where we build more water delivery systems. All of those things need to be done. And this is why I say we got to move on those things, because right now we have a water system that is for 18 million people. Because for the last 4 decades, we didn't do anything for water, to create more water for this state. So this is why we have to build those things. It would take 12, 15, maybe more years to build. By that time, we have 50 million population. So here we have a water system for 18 million. But in fact, when everything is built, there will be 50 million. So we have to start thinking about 50 million people, to provide water for 50 million people, reliable and safe water for 50 million people. So this is why it's important to think way ahead and not to start freezing because we have a temporary budget problem. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you very much. My name is Dan Sam, I'm a fire captain with the city of San Diego. First, I want to thank you for your support you gave locally to the citizens of the city and the county. The question I have stems from revenue. We see a lot more of our revenue dollars, our property tax dollars, go to Sacramento and less coming back because of Proposition 13. We see a lot of our revenue from Prop 172, millions, hundreds of millions of dollars going, supposed to be for public safety, but not coming back to the fire service. This is probably the driest, hottest area of your state, and probably the most underserved when it comes to fire protection. Do you have any plans? Can the state do anything to bring up the fire support services in this county and the city?
Well, first of all, you're absolutely correct. And here is what you need to know. Sometimes when you spend $1, you can save $10 down the line. And here is one of the examples. We all know with fires that if you are very aggressive the first few hours when the fire breaks out, you can really save a lot of homes and also a lot of lives. But then after, when the fires get out of control, it's much tougher. So if we have the resources available right from the beginning, meaning more fire trucks, meaning fully loaded with 5 people, staffed with 5 people in there approximately, and having that all year round, and getting the helicopters that we need, and the fixed-wing aircraft that we need to dump the water on those fires and all this. If we have all those resources ready, that's when they can do the best job. Because they have the manpower then on the bottom, on the ground, and they have the air power, and they have all the resources that they need. This last fire, only because they worked so hard, they did a miracle. So we don't have another Katrina type of situation. But it could be that if we don't have the resources. So this is why we now have, put in our budget an increase for homeowners insurance. So if someone gets a homeowners insurance, that we have a certain percentage increase there, which is approximately $10 per year, approximately, right?
Yes, 1.25%.
Yeah, 1.25%, exactly. And that would then be enough money so that we can fully fund all of the things that are in the Blue Ribbon Commission that they have mentioned in 2003 already, so that we really can provide the firefighters with the necessary kind of resources and the manpower that we really need for all those new challenges, may I remind you, because those guys know that we're talking about new challenges here. It's not anymore there's a fire season, at the end of the summer, in the fall. We have had fires already in March. We've had fires in April. We had fires all year through, and this is why we need to have the 5-man crews on those trucks now almost all year round, and also create more resources for them. Does it answer your question? Thank you very much. Absolutely. Yes. Of course, may I remind you, there's some people who say, wait a minute, you're adding $10 fee to the homeowner's insurance. Isn't that a tax? I mean, they get caught up in the definition of something, but I get caught up in only one thing, and this is protecting lives and helping the firefighters be able to protect the lives. This is what this is about. It's a fee, not a tax. Go ahead, yes.
Let me preface my question by saying I think we all recognize how important health care reform is. But how do we contemplate such an expensive proposal when we're in this fiscal crisis?
Well, I'm glad you asked the question. The question is, I don't know if everyone heard, how do we afford health care reform in a fiscal crisis like this? First of all, our health care reform package is revenue neutral. So it doesn't have anything to do with the budget at all. There's money that is shared responsibility when it comes to putting up the money. Employers, part of it, The hospital association puts up part of it. The state will put up part of it. The federal government will put up part of it. As a matter of fact, the largest share, $5 billion, the federal government, and also the people that are the individuals that get insurance will put up part of it. So it is shared responsibility and it is shared benefits. That's what the bottom line is. And again, it's healthcare reform is one of those things. Let's not stop the momentum. 70% of the people in California believe very strongly we need healthcare reform. It is unfair to the rest of us that are insured that we have to pay 20% of hidden tax every time you pay your premiums, when you pay copay, deductibles, every single thing that you pay, there's 20% added on that hidden tax because someone has to pay for those 6.7 million people that are uninsured. And how much longer can we really face the situation, the crisis in our emergency rooms? Emergency rooms are closing. 60 of them closed in the last 10 years alone because hospitals are getting stuck with unpaid bills. Who is using now the emergency rooms? Not anymore the emergency cases. Yeah, they're using it, but anyone that doesn't have insurance, if they get a cold, they go to an emergency room because it's for free. So that is what is unfair. And you have to pay for it, and you have to pay for it, and you have to pay for it. All of you have to pay for it. We all have to pay for it. For people that don't have insurance. So this is why we want to insure everybody, and those people that can afford it, of course the state will help. That is understood. And we worked it out also those that maybe medium income people, that they also get some incentives. But we got to also have a situation where people don't have to live in fear anymore. Right now, everyone has to live in fear. If you have an insurance policy, you're worried that if you have an illness, they will cancel your insurance. That's what happens a lot of times. I don't know if you've read lately the stories. So we want to stop that madness, and we want to continue on with something really good because California is the golden state. California deserves a golden health care program. Okay?
One more question.
Oh, you're tough today.
Sorry.
Jesus. Yes, please.
Governor, I want to ask a question about education. I've run junior achievement. I had a board meeting this morning with business leaders and superintendents from the various districts, and we had to take all the knives away from the superintendents because they were all talking about the fact that they were going to have to fall on their sword because they're facing huge cuts in education. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, first of all, as you know, I'm a big fan of education. And that's why I ran with the after-school program initiative, Proposition 49. And that's why I feel, when I think about the budget problem that we have, I really feel most sad about the children, that we have to take those kids on this roller coaster ride. It's not fair. And this is why we have to fix the system once and for all. For instance, because we anticipated a 5% increase in revenues this fiscal year, we therefore calculated in a certain increase in spending and in funding for education. Now we find out when we did the budget that we over-appropriated and they're overspending $1.4 billion for education because, as you know, with 40% they're tied always to the revenues. Well, our revenues are not what we anticipated. They're much lower now. So therefore we now should take money back from education. So I said to Mike, how are we going to take $1.4 billion back from education? So we sat down with the education community, with the CTA and with others, and we said, how do we do that in the most fair way? And they said, well, please don't touch the whole 1.4. I know you have to take some back, but just take back a little bit. So this is what we did. We only took back we're going to take back $400 million and leave the $1 billion, even though it's overspending, leave it with education. Why? Because they've already spent that money. They've already hired the teachers. Last year, when the school began, they've already made commitments. So we don't want to rip away the teachers and have people fire teachers in the middle of the year. So this is how we protect them. But comes this coming year, we're going to have a major problem. So the education leaders and everyone has to settle in to the revenues because we have to make $3 billion or so of cuts of what we anticipated to pay. And that's all the money we have. So I think the key thing is for people to recognize we have a problem with the budget system. Let's not ever do that again, and let's fix that system. Okay? Yes, so anyway, thank you very much. You're going to make a little speech now?
Very short.
Love it.
Governor, I'm Scott Peters. I'm the City Council President here. I wanted to thank you very much for being here with you. We know how tough it is, the challenges you have in Sacramento. We wish you the best, and we certainly appreciate your willingness to come and share your thoughts with us, and we hope we can be supportive. I also wanted to thank the San Diego County Taxpayers Association, the San Diego Regional Chamber of Commerce, and the North County Chamber of Commerce for helping us put this together. But let's thank the governor one more time for taking it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just want to add, because you said Taxpayers Association, one thing I do not recommend, and that is to fix this problem with raising taxes. That won't happen, because you can't tax your way out of this problem. You can only get out of this problem by fixing the budget system, okay? Thank you very much. Thank you.